Karolina, thank you very much for accepting the invitation for the interview today. You were well recommended by some expert clients of mine around the topics of family law, around divorce and divorce settlement, prenuptial agreements. And I thought it would be really beneficial for my clients to hear your approach as an attorney, as a lawyer. So thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I have a list of questions. We will see if we will stick with it or we'll just take see where it takes us. And I will start with the first question that might be a little controversial still for some people, because when we talk about love, when we talk about relationships, we don't really want to think that much about practical side of the things, like a prenuptial agreement. What is your take on that? What are the maybe misconceptions? And is it worth having this kind of discussion before getting married?
I think the first thing that we should listen to and think about before getting married is any red flags that we see in the relationship, and listen to our gut feeling. And bringing up the topic of prenuptial agreement and bringing up the topic of our resources and sharing our resources during our relationship is certainly a sensitive topic during which the red flags may come up. Does my partner have resources? Is he willing to share the resources with me and our children in the future? Is he seemingly open about his resources? Is he is he giving me information about what we have, what we might have, about his thoughts for the future or not? Does it seem like he's hiding anything or she hiding anything? Is she protective of her account and doesn't want to tell me, doesn't want to share? Is he generous or is he not generous? These are all things that we should listen to, and if we do see or hear red flags, pay attention to them. Because in the future, they're not going to get better, they'll get worse. And they'll definitely get worse if there's a conflict, if there's a potential crisis in the relationship, or the relationship is going through difficult times that are general, worldwide. And this is why you want to go into a relationship with trust. Whether you have prenuptial agreement or not, I don't think is that important, but I think it's extremely important that we are open to each other and we share information.
So this would maybe be one of the misconceptions about prenuptial agreements, because what I would think is that when you have one, it makes it easier when things go off, right? And when the divorce might be in question. Is it not the case?
A prenuptial agreement is a double-edged sword. It can make things much easier. It can make things much more difficult. The concept of matrimonial community property was created to protect everybody in the family, every member of the family, whether rich or poor, whether going through a vulnerable time of taking care of small children and not being able to work, whether sick or handicapped and needing help from the other partner. So the code system, the one that applies if we do not have a matrimonial, if we do not have a prenuptial agreement, is the one that protects everybody. It certainly can get messy if a couple that doesn't have prenuptial agreement gets divorced or gets into a conflict about their property, because then you need to unwind certain, information and potentially even go through court. But that may happen even with a prenuptial agreement. The advantage of prenuptial agreement is that it protects you from debts of the other spouse. And this is something that should come up as a topic between spouses where one of them is in a risky business or is vulnerable to taking on debts. Then you definitely do want to protect yourself with a prenuptial agreement. But splitting up property and not sharing anything while you know that you may be at home with 1, 2, or 3 children, not generating any income, and the agreement between you and your spouse is that he will work and provide for the family and you stay at home, and then you have a prenuptial agreement which does not allow for any matrimonial property to be created, then in the case of divorce, you might end up with nothing. So prenuptial agreement is a double-edged sword, and it needs to be well thought through.
It's quite interesting, and I think it will be surprising also for a lot of people who will listen to the interview. Now, you touched some interesting topics also about this risk of one partner getting into debt and how to deal with it. Let's say that the couple didn't have a prenuptial agreement and that along the way during the marriage, one of the couple went into some maybe risky business or did something, and the other partner is afraid that the debts might have an impact on whatever they own already. Is there something like a post-nuptial agreement that they can do?
So the prenuptial agreement is something that, or the same type of agreement may be concluded anytime during marriage. You can decide that your matrimonial property will cease to exist and will be settled in the middle of your marriage, and then going forward you will aggregate property separately, property as well as debts. So this decision can be made anytime at the beginning of your husband or your wife taking on a risky business or potential debts. Of course, there's also a possibility. This is a situation where the couple communicates. They know, they are aware of their plans, and they prepare for them. But of course, there might be situations where your partner doesn't inform you about what they do, although they are obliged to. Partners, first thing, whether they have prenuptial agreement or not, they should inform each other of their wealth, of their plans, of what they do at work, and how it affects the family. So, but if they don't, if they keep things secret, then you might end up finding out too late or later that your spouse took on a debt. And then it's really important, extremely important, that you react immediately. And the reactions may be two. First is that you may ask your husband or wife to divide the property immediately so that going forward this doesn't happen again. If he or she don't agree, then you may ask the court to divide your property by a court decision.
While staying married?
While staying married. Of course, this is very unusual. Usually this is something that ends up in a divorce. But if you want to stay married for whatever reason, but you want to split your properties, it may be decided upon by court as well, upon the request of one spouse. But the second and even more important thing is to make sure that this one debt that already happened, that your husband or wife took over, is not included in the matrimonial property. And you do that by informing the husband or wife immediately that the debt was taken on without the consent of the other spouse. And you must also inform the creditor, whoever provided the money in the debt.
And the way of informing this party is through a lawyer, or is it just a general letter that you send?
Whatever way you can later prove that you have done so. Of course, a lawyer sending a letter through data box or sending something via registered mail. As much as you can evidence that you have done it, the more you can evidence it, the better.
Now talking about this, how much of a security does it bring into a relationship? And you also talked about the situation where one of the couple, and it's usually the woman, stays at home and doesn't really provide in terms of earning money for the family, but takes care of the household and of the kids. What is the difference between a couple who is married and has agreed on such an arrangement and the couple who never got married, but they live together and they still have the same arrangement of the husband or the man working and providing money for the family and the lady staying at home and taking care of the household and kids?
This is where I see the biggest risk of not getting married. when a couple lives in a very like standard arrangement of the wife staying, or sorry, the partner staying at home with children, not aggregating any income, and the other partner aggregating income but only in his own name or her own name. The female or the woman, so the parent staying at home, is in a very vulnerable situation and should ask to be married, or should ask to have a contract about how her or his needs will be covered in case the partnership ceases to exist.
How does the court then see this kind of arrangement? Like if they have a mutual agreement that they signed, is it something binding in case they part their ways?
Contracts must be followed, and this is something that is enforceable by law or by court. But you must prove that such contract existed. Of course, you can prove that even verbal contracts existed by course of things actually happening that way. But proving that me being in the home and him making money and investing the money in his house, that we agree that I will have half the house after we split up, that's really hard, almost impossible. Whereas, of course, when you married, the civil code protects you.
You also mentioned this topic of the person who doesn't have an active income being the more vulnerable one. Now, when I take it a little further down the road and it comes, let's say, to retirement, what happens is that the retirement in the Czech Republic is depending on how much money you earned during your active life and how much you paid towards the social system. What is the protection for the partner who took care of the kids and didn't really earn money? Because it also affects them. I think that very often we think about the active work-life period of time, but we don't have in mind that we might be retired from the age of 67 till the age of 80, 90, and that brings quite a lot of time with a lower income.
Well, the Czech social system or retirement system does take into account the number of children a woman gives birth to, so it does reflect in I think in the age, right, and when she's entitled to retirement. But otherwise, really, an unmarried woman who spent most of her life taking care of her children is in a socially very vulnerable situation, and she needs to protect herself in time.
But I think even a married one, right? Because I mean, even if you're married, you get divorced, there will be some divorce settlement, but I don't know if it really counts also with the retirement period to be covered.
Yeah, not really. Not really. It talks more about the past and what we aggregated in the past, but what you're going to do in the future. Certainly, there are some aspects that if the court is deciding upon dissolution of property of a married couple that was married for 30 or 40 years, and now the wife is about to retire and she took care of the family the whole time, this is something that might be reflected in the dissolution of the property in the form of so-called disparity, that she might be entitled to more than one half so that she can be taken care of. But these are very individual aspects of each case. The important thing is that the civil code does say that explicitly says that taking care of household and children is equal to going to work and aggregating money. So these two activities within family are absolutely on the same level and may not be looked down upon.
How is it then with the properties that you acquired before you got married? Let's say you bought your own house, maybe you inherited something. Also, inheritance might be even a different topic, even while a couple is married. How is that then viewed upon when the couple parts ways during the divorce?
Community property only consists of items that were acquired during marriage. So everything that I had before marriage, a house, a car, savings, all of that is my individual property. except for profit that it generates. For example, I have an apartment which I'm not living in. The apartment is mine because I had it before marriage, but it's aggregating income from rent. The rent that accumulates, during marriage is part of the community property. Inheritance is something that never becomes part of the community property, even if acquired during marriage.
Okay, interesting. Now on to another topic which very often gets asked is about the divorce settlement towards the kids and the alimony. What do you have to say to that topic from your experience? Like, what are the misconceptions? What are the expectations? Is there something like bringing the alimony close to the inflation rate? Is there something like that?
Alimony can be a very individual topic as well, depending on different cases. There are people who have very average incomes, and both of them are about on the same level. There are people with absolutely over average net worth, not just incomes, but overall property. And all these are aspects that must be taken into account when the family is splitting. Generally, the court looks at what the child really needs, as for hobbies, school, whether school is paid for, and the judges very often apply a chart issued by the Ministry of Justice, which gives a certain recommendation about the percentage of income that the parent that's not taking care of the children, that doesn't have custody of children, should attribute to the child maintenance. So I would say 80% of cases, in 80% of cases, this chart is applied, and it's divided into alimony for children below school age, during school age, high school age, and older. It's a certain percentage. The percentage is a bit different if there's only one child, two children, three children, and so this chart is applied very often. What's different is when the family is very wealthy. And sometimes the wives or the husbands, the wives think and the husbands are worried that in a typical case, that the alimony will be extraordinarily high. Because the net worth of the obliged parent is extraordinarily high. But usually the wives in this case are a little bit disappointed because the alimony still stays in the amount which is reasonable for maintaining the child's not only basic needs but general needs that the child in this type of family has. And has had until then. But if there's an extraordinary amount of wealth on the obliged parent's side, the court may also decide that part of the alimony will be allocated in a savings account, because the child is entitled to part of the wealth of the other parent, but it doesn't make sense for the mother to spend it on things that are no longer necessary or not really necessary. And the Constitutional Court even says that both parents, even the one who's paying the alimony and not taking care of the child in person, has the right to bring up the child by saying, I don't think it's healthy for you to have 100,000 crowns or 500,000 crowns a month available and for you every month, and you need to understand that money needs to be made before it can be spent.
And in this case, the money is then available when the child turns 18?
18, which I think is really early.
It is. We often talk about it with parents when they want to set up some kind of investment agreements or something like that for the kids. And I always say it's better when it's in the parent's name, because some kids at the age of 18 will not be ready at all to handle like any amount of money, right?
Most kids. And I think unhealthy for this scenario to happen, and the courts should allow the parents to come up with some investment tool or something that allows the saving for the children, but also allows the control of the parent. But it's really hard to do because the child is going to be adult at the age of 18, and he or she should not be restricted from handling their money. So this is something where the parents need to come in and agree. Otherwise, the court has no choice other than to decide that the savings are going to be aggregated until the age of 18, and then it's up to the child what they do with it.
How about my ex-husband got into a new business and he didn't earn that much now before, but he does earn much better now. Do I have a chance to go to the court and ask them to like reapprove basically of the amounts of the alimony?
Absolutely. As long as the parent is still obliged to pay alimony because the child is still at school and can't maintain her or his personal needs by working, the obliged parent must pay accordingly to their income. So once we're divorced and once alimony is decided upon, it doesn't mean that that's forever, because we could be divorcing when the child is 3 years old and all they need is food and milk, and they don't have any private schools, no expensive hobbies, they don't travel. So it absolutely may and will increase, the alimony may and will increase, not just with the age with the child, but merely the age already is a reason for increasing alimony. They say that it's usually with the start of school, then with the start of grammar school, and then high school, when the alimony should be adjusted. But also if one of the parents starts making more money, or on the contrary becomes handicapped or can't afford that high alimony. It's always easier to increase alimony than decrease, I have to say, but increasing is certainly possible, and it's something that happens standardly.
Now, talking about kids, and you talked also about childcare. And I think among my clients, there's a lot of them who are non-Czechs who marry a Czech person. And then if they divorce, they're wondering if it's possible for them to maybe leave with the kid, go back to their home country, or if they have to stay here, if they have to stay in the same city. What is the usual practice around this?
This is a very big pain for many parents who have followed their spouse to their home country, or they live in a third country together. And if the divorce is full of conflict and one parent wants to leave, is completely dependent on the consent of the other parent. Changing countries, but even changing cities from Prague to Brno could be considered child abduction. And it's something that may only happen with the consent of the other parent or with the consent of the court. The consent of the other parent may be replaced by the consent of court, but it's not automatic.
One other question that I sometimes also see in the Facebook groups is, what if I'm a third country citizen and I live here on a, let's say, family unification visa? What happens if I do have kids or if I don't have kids in case of the divorce? Does it have any effect on my ability to stay and live in the Czech Republic?
If you do have children and the children have permit to stay here or are even citizens because of the other spouse, then of course as their mother, you still being with them still provides for the reason of unification of family. It doesn't have to be a whole family, an undivorced family. When there are no children, you need to look into whether or not there might be other reasons for your possible stay here. Have you been here longer than 3-5 years? Do you have a working permit here? You may continue just based on a different reason for stay.
Perfect. Now, the divorce is one kind of situation that may happen. What I also saw in my work with the clients is that sometimes death hits us a very similar way and catches us really unprepared. Is there something that I can do as preventative steps to make that kind of situation easier, to maybe make the whole inheritance process easier in case something like that happens?
I would go back to my original opening statement here. Share information. Share information with your partner as much as you can. Be aware of what you own. Be aware of the bills that need to be paid. Be aware of where money is, and make sure that there's always some property and some money allocated in your own name. Because even if you do have access to accounts of your wife or husband, but the accounts are in their name, they become frozen at the time of death, until the inheritance procedure is finished. What I've seen in my practice is not just the unfortunate situations of somebody passing away, but also going through a terrible accident and being in a coma for a number of months. And where the situation becomes even more difficult because you have no information, there's no inheritance procedure even started. You're hoping for your beloved one coming back to life, but at the same time you see, you start getting letters from the mortgage bank that mortgage is not being paid. But at the same time, you can't pay from their account because it's their account. And such person must become a legal guardian from the court. The legal guardian may then take these acts. It's extremely important that you, for some period of time, you may be completely independent and you can take care of all this yourself through your own means, from your own account and in your own name.
Now you say for some period of time. What is the experience when we talk about somebody dying? How long does the inheritance process usually take till the other partner, like, should you be covered for half a year, for a year? What is to be expected?
I would say the minimum time you should be looking at is a year. The procedure may be longer, depending whether there are more possible heirs to the inheritance. If the person has properties in different parts of the world, then the inheritance procedure can take several years. If a minor is involved, then the custodian court must approve of any agreement within the inheritance procedure, which gives it an extra weeks and months in the procedure itself. So 1 year would be the absolute minimum to get oriented. You must remember that it's always a huge shock going through anything like this, and it takes you a month or two just to get your head around the situation. And but having a box at home with all the papers and documents, informing each other about where my accounts, how to access them, and making sure that we have some of the assets split so that both of us may take care of them is essential. And it's a clear sign of trust within the couple.
It confirms my experience that I had with a client of mine, where her husband, he died when he was 40 something due to cancer. And even though he had a big business, he had really huge amounts of money invested in the bank. And she was the one who mainly took care of the family. And she also did work, but knowing that he brings the income, she really took on jobs that were more for fun and didn't bring that much money. And she told me that it took them over half a year, maybe around 9 months, to have everything settled. And what was surprising for me, because I deal with clients with topics like life insurance and others, and before I got the information from her, I might have thought that for somebody who has such a big business and has a lot of property in their name, they wouldn't need life insurance. But what she said is that if they didn't have it, she has no idea how she would go on with paying the school tuition for her kids, her rent, the payments for the mortgage, just regular expenses that she needs to pay on a daily basis. So you
heard similar
experience.
Similar stories where insurance has covered most of the first line debts and took care of things until the inheritance was taken care of and sorted out. If the partner passes away abroad, like I have a friend whose husband passed away in a skiing trip in Canada, just getting the certificate of death took 6 months. before anything could even start here. And mortgage was needed to be paid. And again, it's actually typical in these situations that these are wealthier people where it's the husband who's been aggregating the money, who has a bigger business, and the wife backs him up at home, taking care of the children and household. But then usually she's deprived from information unless they agree to share it, and they anticipate things that you certainly don't want to be anticipating, but you want to be prepared for anything.
There's actually one thing that maybe the listeners will not know, which is that with the life insurance and with the pension fund, the supplementary pension fund, the private one, you have the possibility to say who the beneficiary of it will be, which means that once the insurance company or the pension fund gets the information of the person dying, you can expect the money within a week or two. So that makes the process much, much faster than what you described here.
Just be aware always that if the beneficiary is a minor, the custodian court comes in place and has a say. And that extends the whole period of actually receiving the money and then being able to dispose of the money, because the mother, then it's the money of the child, and the mother can't just take it and spend it on whatever she thinks is necessary.
Very true. And again, it reflects to what I usually recommend to my clients. If there is a possibility and there is a trusted adult person who, if something happens, will actually take care of the kid, make the adult person the beneficiary, because with the child it will take a long time. And what I heard, I don't know if it's true, is that it's basically like to an extreme, the custodian court approving of like every single thing that you want to buy for the kid. So it's not that it takes some time to decide and then you get the amount of money, but you're really getting it by pieces, right, till the kid turns 18.
It's true.
Interesting. Okay. How is it in case, because you also mentioned the necessity to have access to each other's accounts, how does a joint account help? I know it's not a thing that is very usual in Czech Republic. There are like two banks who offer a true joint account.
Yes.
But how does that change the situation? If one of the couple dies, do I legally have access to the money, or can I legally use just half of that before the inheritance process?
I have to say I don't have experience with this. I'm not sure, but I think I would say that when it's a joint account, and if it's if the money is in a matrimonial property, they both are owners of all the money in it, not half each.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not a co-ownership, it's a joint ownership. So they should be both entitled to all of the money and be able to handle it. This type of joint account I recommend to parents when they want to accumulate alimony in one place and both see how it's being spent. For example, if they want to spend for extracurricular activities for kids, hobbies, school fees, and they just want to send it in one place and then pay it from there, then the joint account is certainly much better than an account of one parent with just the access right of the other parent.
Right?
Yes, because the owner can anytime stop the disponent from being able to access it.
Now, when we come to the after divorce part, and let's say that it went well and the settlement is done and there is some money, there is some property to deal with. What I sometimes see with my clients is that they feel lost, like even if they have the property, even if they have the money, because they were never the ones who were taking care of that, who were responsible for dealing with it. Is it your experience as well that it can look positive because, hey, you got the money, you should be fine. But at the same time, I can imagine it can be very overwhelming. Like, what shall I do? What is the things to look out for? Can I trust the bank? Can I trust the financial advisor? Where to start? Do I trust YouTubers who, give out financial advice?
I think this is where people like you come in to help these clients. People come to me usually with the stages before how to get the property from the matrimonial community. But of course, since I've worked with the client from the beginning of the divorce towards the end, they might be asking these questions as well. But then I would probably refer them to somebody like you. This is more of a financial tax advice rather than legal.
Okay, okay. My experience is that it's just never bad or never too late to ask for advice. And I talked to some clients recently and I said that, me, like if I wasn't in the industry and wasn't dealing with the money matters every day, I think it's so confusing and so overwhelming. Because similarly to you wanting to get in shape, there's tons of videos from, Instagrammer experts on how to get in shape, but then they are not really tailored to you. They're just generic advice. And it's very similar also to financial advice that is out there. Even more so that when you look for information in English, it's usually directed towards the American market, which doesn't apply again to the Czech one.
It must be so easy to get lost in the offers for these types of services when you're not financially savvy yourself, and you're afraid of fraud. You don't know who to trust, like you said. So I'm sure that references are probably the best way to find out people to help you.
What are the topics that maybe we didn't cover, or some, stories of your clients that come to mind that without sharing the personal information might be something, because we learn a lot from stories, right? And it's easier sometimes to learn from, mistakes of other people than to make our own. Is there something that you can think of that comes up to your mind?
There will be several bullet points probably. Don't underestimate your gut feelings at the beginning of the relationship or throughout the relationship. When you do see red flags, pay attention to them and take action. Don't wait for things to get better themselves. Work on it. Make sure you're protected, because by protecting yourself, you're often protecting your children and your joint future together. Make sure that you're with someone who's willing to share resources and share information, just like you should during the relationship, because that's what true family and relationship is about.
One question that I sometimes see appear on the forums, on Facebook, or even in different groups is, shall I talk to the lawyer first to find out what my options are before eventually bringing up the topic of the divorce in my own home?
Very generally said, you'll never make a mistake by speaking to the lawyer first, of course. But individually, it depends on the relationship you're in. If you've had an open, frank, and honest relationship where you've just started growing apart and you both are not happy, but are able to speak to each other, then leaving lawyers out and working it out yourself, and then maybe just having lawyers put it on paper is an ideal way of solution. But usually this is not the case, or unfortunately this is not the case in many families, and you might be in an abusive relationship, or in a relationship where just one doesn't hear the other, and you need professional help. Then seek the professional help, and don't be afraid to ask for help, because you'll be surprised that once you ask, not only it comes to you and there are multiple people who are willing to help and can help you, but there are multiple people with the same experience, people who are in the same situation or who were in the same situation like you are now, and they got out of it, and they're the greatest example of things being able to change and get much better. Staying in something that isn't working for too long may mean lowering your chances of it getting better, because the sooner you start changing things, the sooner they'll change.
In other words, you don't really need to toughen up and live through everything, right? Because what happens is that if we get into some situation that we don't feel well in, our tolerance against the negative things that are happening is also getting bigger sometimes. And we're like, oh, this is still okay. This is within my tolerance limits. It sucks already a little, but it's still within the limits. And then it might be even more difficult later on to take the step back.
Listen to yourself, listen to how you really feel, and do not let things become standard that are not standard or shouldn't be standard. And don't be afraid of your own vulnerability. Maybe you're afraid to show it to your partner who's abusive. Maybe you're afraid to show it to your perfect colleague somewhere. But again, there are people who will help you if you do show your vulnerability and that you're afraid of something, and those people are there to help you, whether it's a good friend or a lawyer or an advisor, a therapist, a psychologist. These people will come your way if you ask for help.
You said a very important thing that I often hear from clients as well regarding finance, because sometimes we feel that everybody else has it all together. You know, you see the pictures on Facebook, you see the videos on Instagram, and sometimes like the happiest couple who like Instagram happy couples will then surprise you by parting ways, and somebody who you wouldn't even expect them having this kind of experience, because it's not something that we really share. We don't usually share with our colleagues or our friends, hey, like, you know, my money situation sucks a little. So we have the feeling that we are the only ones who cannot somehow manage their life.
Going out there and being part of a community that shares this with you is a great tool of overcoming the situation or going through it. There are people who went through the same thing. I see my clients especially from the international community in the Czech Republic, helping each other a lot. There are even whole associations and organizations here that provide help to single parents, foreign single parents in the Czech Republic, with communicating with schools and doctors and lawyers, and it's possible. The network is there, and when you ask for help, you will be able to find it, and you'll be surprised through the personal contact with people, how many people you'll find that you can associate yourself with.
Can you name some of these initiatives? Or
I know some of my clients work with Meta. It's an organization that helps especially in education, with communication with schools. I know the organization, the International Women's Club in Prague is very active, and they help each other a lot. I know there's a expat Facebook group that
the expat women in Prague, probably.
Expat women in Prague, which who communicate with each other a lot. Again, do events, and they give each other tips on where to seek, you know, all kinds of services in the Czech Republic. So, you know, there are many horrible things about social media, but this is one that's very useful.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing your insights on all of that and your experience. Is there maybe one final thought that comes to your mind, that something that we didn't cover, or that you want to stand out of the interview that we just did together?
I work not only with women, but also men, and I always work with them in a very difficult situation when they're going through one of the most difficult situations in life. People say, or psychologists say, that divorce is the second worst thing after death in family, not only for children, but also for the parents. And through those times, people are very vulnerable, and they should, one thing that they should know the first is that they need to trust in themselves, that they have the ability to start a new life. And whatever's ending means that there's a beginning of something new.
Nicely put. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope it will also bring some answers to the questions of the ones who will be listening to the podcast or to one of the reels on the Instagram. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.